Help support this channel and get early access to videos plus exclusive content and patrons-only live discussions by becoming a member at patreon.com/Bruce Poinsette.
Hey, this is the Bruce Poinsette Show, the world's most dangerous infomercial. Got a special guest with me in studio today, Jenni Moore, writer for the Portland Mercury. Jenni, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Bruce.
Yes. Thank you for being on. Thank you for representing the Ducks while being on. We didn't talk about this, but hey, always go Ducks.
Go Ducks.
I'm trying to think of the last Ducks sports thing I've watched, but don't forget about that.
It's been a minute.
Anyways, Jenni, I'm not sure if I've ever told you this, but there was a time where myself and Donovan Scribes were doing this, I guess, YouTube show series type thing during basically at the beginning of the pandemic called 106 in Quarantine. And yeah, no, I think that I still love the name. It's kind of sad that
why
that
didn't I
carry
catch
on.
that?
I know. Who knows? Things get rebooted these days, maybe one day. But part of it was just not really being DJs, but like kind of like selecting songs and like videos to kind of dissect with people. And admittedly, like I first got word of you from writing for We Out Here magazine, and I think I was at a time where I was still doing some writing for them myself. But 2020, I've been very like out of touch with the scene. So like when we're going listening or looking for songs, looking for videos, like you were like my cheat code, basically. Just if I go to Jenni Moore's column, I'm gonna get, I can find new artists, find things that actually appeal to me, because I don't want to just like throw something out there that I'm not actually feeling because people say.
Just because you found it and it's from here, you don't.
Yeah. So again, I'm not sure if I told you that, but
No,
like
you
you were very essential and part of the show, even though obviously
I wasn't on
none of us told you about it.
Well, that's awesome to hear. I didn't know that. But I feel like that's kind of what We Out Here was to me, like before I really knew who anyone was or what was going on. Like We Out Here was like my first, like, I wrote for them first. Anytime I was writing about hip hop, it was like, that was like where I got my start. And like Mac Smith is like my Yoda, like, like he's also my cheat code. So I'm glad that my column could be that too. Cause sometimes I'll literally go on We Out Here and I'm like, what's Mac talking about? What did he dig up? Like, cause I'll be, sometimes I'm stumped too, because you're kind of just like searching the internet unless you catch someone at a show or you meet somebody in person. But obviously since the pandemic, that's a little more rare.
Yeah. So before we kind of get into WOM and just the Mercury, can you just talk about like what got you into writing and music writing specifically?
That's a good question. I think in school, like reading and writing, anything to do with that, literature stuff, was always my strong suit. And now I'm figuring out I have a little ADHD, I think. Because in school I really struggled with the topics that I found kind of boring. Like it was just hard for me to focus on anything, but at least with writing, I felt like that was like a strength I could grow. And like, it's just such an infinite world, of reading and like imagination and stuff. So the fact that you can explore pretty much any topic through writing, I think is what really drew me to it, is that I could never really be bored with it. You could always kind of fall in love with a different genre or a different mode or something. So I think that kind of was like from a child what drew me to writing. And then I think I would always like kind of fantasize or like dream about like being like a novelist or something someday, like writing a book, which I still haven't done. I don't write fiction, but like back when I would think, I was like, I'm going to write a book someday. And I would like, kind of see myself as like an author or something. So I guess just that. And then with music, what I actually wanted to do, like my first dream was I wanted to be a singer. Like I wanted to be Mariah Carey when I grew up, basically. But obviously you get kind of discouraged. Like anything to do with the entertainment industry can be kind of like, if you don't look the part or you don't feel you look the part or you just feel like there's a lot of obstacles, you're like, that's probably not realistic. I'm gonna pick something else, you know? So I kind of did that, even though I still love to sing and like karaoke or, you know, musical theater or whatever. But I think exploring music through writing was kind of my way of just like geeking out about the music that inspires me. And you'll probably notice that I also only write kind of about what I like. Like, it's really hard. Like, I do have to cover some things that aren't my cup of tea just to appeal to the readers. You know, like, the readership is always, like, first in mind. So sometimes I won't include certain artists or something. But then my editor will be like, we have to include this show. We have got to include this show because our readers are going to care about that. I'm like, oh, yeah. It's not just the Jenni show. So, but yeah, like for the Mercury, they're a super like alternative publication that really embraces writers' voices. So you really can be like, you can kind of say whatever you want, you know, like you can cuss, you can have slang in your column, you can, you know, you could just kind of express yourself in whatever way you feel is most appropriate, as opposed to with, you know, the New York Times. It's going to be a little more standard journalism, you know.
Right.
So, yeah, I think the Mercury was like the perfect, like after We Out Here, it was kind of the perfect like segue because they gave you that like freedom. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. And I think that's a great kind of like connection between just, again, someone else who wrote for WOM. I hadn't really thought about that as far as like the transition from like that style to the Mercury, but that makes a lot of sense. It
Right.
tracks. You said a few things that I wanted to kind of follow up on. One, just with writing, like talking about like being able to talk about different things, being able to, I think what makes it appeal to me as just a introvert is I feel like it gave me a platform to kind of like explain things to people or explain things that, you know, are familiar to me, experiences that are familiar to me, but, you know, people aren't necessarily going to get and are not necessarily going to, I don't know. I've gotten a little bit more confident in my conversation, but, you know, growing up, just like that was sort of like the thing that gave me a voice, you know?
Totally.
And you talk about being like aspirations of being a singer. And do you still sing? Or?
Yeah, I mean, all day, the whole way here. Yeah, literally all the time. I sing to my daughter all the time. My friends and all my friends are kind of like music artsy people, and we love singing karaoke. Not even going out, like my friend will just like hook up like his computer to speakers in his house, and we'll all just like karaoke, like just sitting around, just like sing. Like me and my friends like to harmonize together, like on the drop of a hat. Like that's the type of people I run with. So yeah, I sing all the time. I feel like my real dream is to be like a backup singer. Like if I could be just one of like 3 backup singers for someone, I would just be in heaven. Someone,
I mean,
ask me to sing for you. I love harmonizing. It's so fun. It feels like Nirvana when your voice like clicks in with someone else's on like a perfectly like complementary note. You know what I mean? You don't know.
I was gonna say I have absolutely no idea. I have no singing talent, but it sounds
fun.
like a great experience.
It's really fun, especially so like I was in choir in high school. My I went to Canby High, and my concert choir is like very competitive. Like Gresham is also a really competitive concert choir, but like my high school this year won first in state. Just want to say. Woohoo.
Go Canby.
Go Canby Cougs.
I think.
I don't say that a lot, by the way, but I do root for the concert choir. So yeah, I would love to be in like a choir again someday, or like, I don't know, if I could be like one of Blossom's backup singers or something, that would be like a dream.
Blossom, if you're watching.
She'll be like, Jenni, why didn't you ask me this before? That's what she's going to say.
Hey, if we can make it happen and I could say I was part of the story, I will take that.
Right. No, I'm just kind of shy. Like, I like to sing in front of people, but I'm also I have some stage fright. So that was also like one of the obstacles is like being on stage. You got to know what to do with your hands. it's a lot of pressure. And then your voice gets shakier when you're scared. So you don't sound as good as when you sing like by yourself. So a lot of obstacles to get over there. But yes, I sing all the time.
That's now I'm just thinking about all the logistics. And also just sitting on camera here thinking about my hands going everywhere. So not self-conscious at all.
Well, you got the computer to block it. So
True.
if you get nervous, just hide.
But it was funny, even when you talk about just like thinking about the industry pressures and like what you're supposed to look like. So like I remember a friend asked me like, Bruce, do you rap at all? And it wasn't like a white person randomly asking. So,
okay. So
because usually when you get that question, it's usually in that context.
You felt it was a genuine question.
Yeah. Like it was a genuine thing. I was like, this is probably around college time, but like I did write poetry. So maybe it was like a connection there. Mm-hmm. But I always think about it because like when like high school, middle school, really getting into music, like that was pre-Lupe on skateboards, pre-Kanye, pre-Drake, really kind of like, I don't know, making like something where I would even think of myself as like, oh, I could be a viable rapper just by image possible. And now I just look in this world, I was like, wow. Like I don't like all of Drake's music like that, but I'm like, just what he's doing for like, carving paths for just like criminally corny people. It's wonderful.
I happen to like his brand of corny. Usually.
This is what I mean though. Like
there is a lane for that. There was a market for it. It was untapped before Drake.
If only I had known, could have changed the trajectory of everything.
Similarly, I feel that way about Lizzo. Because I grew up thinking like, oh, like I'm not like a stick figure, girl. I thought that you had to be thin and gorgeous to be a successful singer.
I mean, that's pretty much
what
you saw.
Well, that's what I saw. And I think Lizzo's beautiful.
Yep.
Even though she's bigger. But like I couldn't see that for myself. I couldn't imagine a world where someone who looked like me would actually be like on stage like Beyonce. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't even imagine that. So it's like also it like brings tears to my eyes like to go to Lizzo's shows and just celebrate that because it's so fun and like it's like, oh my God, poor little Jenni. Like like if I had just believed in myself like Lizzo, you know what I mean? Like so it's actually really beautiful to see that type of stuff. Like, and, being like, winning Grammy Awards and like the same level, like there aren't as many barriers now. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah. That's like, you're getting like the highest levels of recognition and everything and, excellence. On the flip side, because you also kind of like talked about covering mostly stuff you actually like and vibe with. But one of the things I think that made me respect Mac the most during that time was knowing how many submissions he is going through that you will never hear about because it's terrible. And like, I tried to do a little bit of that. I couldn't.
It's just, really hard.
Yeah.
My email inbox right now is in shambles.
And I feel bad saying this because it's like, I'm not trying to like discourage people obviously from sending music, creating music. And, art is a messy process.
It is very messy.
You do. But I don't like the amount of, you just talk about like the amount of music you actually sift through before a column comes out, before, you're saying, I want to cover this.
Honestly, way less than I used to. Back when I was like on staff at the Mercury, that was like my job. That was like, even when I was copy chief, part of my job was to write my column and to cover music and like be abreast of everything. And now I'm not on staff anywhere, so I don't feel that is my responsibility to literally listen to like every submission. I kind of just like funnel it into a folder that's like for the column, and then like when I need something, if I'm like, oh, I can't, nothing, I haven't found anything for this section or whatever, I'll like look through, see what the email says, Because honestly, if someone doesn't write like a personal note to me, like if they don't write like, hey, Jenni, like if my name isn't at the top and it's just like, hi, blah, 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 and it's just a bunch of music stuff, like I probably am not going to like, I probably just delete the email because I just get so many that I don't have time to like just read because a lot of times it'll be like, I'll get to the bottom and they're not even from Portland, which isn't even relevant to my column. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, this is just like an artist from New York or something. Like, this isn't, like, do you know what I even cover? Like, this isn't for me. I don't cover, whatever. So, yeah, I sift through some, probably more than you, but not a ton anymore. Just as I need to, because I honestly, it's a lot of labor to do that. But I'm always pleasantly surprised. Like recently, I actually did open an email, like an old one, like from a few months ago, and I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. And I like listened to it and I was like, this is good. And I actually did include it in my column. So like, it's kind of just like a chance thing, honestly, because my email honestly is just so much spam and so many submissions. And a lot of it's like carryover from other publications I used to write for that I'm not anymore. So it's like, it's just kind of messy in there. And that's not really my full-time job anymore. So not a ton anymore, but back when I did, it was overwhelming. And I got to say, it's really hard, not just to listen to music that you don't like, because maybe you don't think it's bad or you think it's good or you think it's okay. If it's not like the music you want to be listening to instead, it's hard. Like, you know what I mean? Because it's like, if you're listening to music, you want to listen to the music you want to listen to, not something you're not super interested in that you have to listen to because you have to write about it. Like that sounds like really boring. So I try to make it fun. And when I do, I try to like put on a music video. Like if they have a music video for it, I'll try to watch that instead because it's just like so much. I feel like it just gives me more context. And, like, it's really hard to write about a song you don't know what the meaning behind it was. Like, you can write about what it sounds like and, like, what lyrics you can make out. But sometimes lyrics are really vague, and they're just, you don't know what it really meant to them. So it's always helpful, I think, when people, like, actually send you some background about it. Like, who played on it? What instruments are on it? How was it? When was it written? When was it recorded? Who helped? It's like... all that stuff is so helpful, I feel like, especially when you're writing about stuff that you don't really know a ton about. It's just like a new artist, and they don't have like a big online presence or something. And you're like, who are you? Who are you even? Are you real? Are you, like you never know if someone's like legit sometimes if they don't have an online presence. But that was a rabbit hole.
No, I think that's really important just because, there's a lot of, I think like just angst around marketing. I know I have it. And especially when it comes to like, you need to have an online presence and sort of like that, the idea is like people hear that, but they don't hear the why it's important, why it's functional. So like when you explain that, it's like, I want to be able to talk about your story. I want to be able to, talk about this in some depth.
Right.
Just tell me about yourself. Like I said, who are you?
Right.
But also, I was curious, like, when you do stumble upon those, like, okay, no one's really heard of this, or like this, there's a big following for this, and you're like, for lack of better terms, feel like you discovered something or put the city onto something. That has to feel good, right?
It feels really good. It feels awesome. Like, okay, humble brag. I think I did Wynn's very first interview ever. Like, she was in Sneaker Wave. I did like a whole column with an interview with her. And now to see, she's like about to take off.
I was pretty sure she was on Sway.
Yeah,
like,
I was like, what like,
right?
It's very much like, yeah, sure. Yeah, makes sense. So like stuff like that feels great. I'm like, I didn't discover her by any means, but like, I definitely like played a part in her come up, which feels really good.
Yeah, see, I got to feel the same way as far as, like, I did not by any means discover Mike Capes.
Right.
But technically, I did his first, like, write-up in one of the publications. So I'd be like, again, I was there for one of those stories.
Right.
I think it's the same thing for
like
when
the Mike Capes documentary comes out. Like maybe me and you will be in it.
Mike, if
Local
you're watching,
writer. Yeah. You better tell them. Yeah.
tell the full story. No, I'm just
When?
kidding. But to that question though, as far as again the angst, and I had DJ Cliff in here a few weeks back and kind of asked him the same thing, because I think that's the other part of covering the scene at any level, where Portland is a smaller big city. It's not on the map technically like that. So there's always, at least since I've kind of like really been tapped into the media part of the scene, there's always been sort of this era of like, who's going to be the person to blow next. And even like Amine is, this internationally recognized artist, but that era, so that atmosphere is still very much there. And I know it can bleed into like how people reach out to you, how, you just navigate, go to shows and deal with people. So yeah, you just talk about kind of like navigating the, I think we'll stick with angst.
The angst? I'm sorry. What do you mean by that? I know you just said a lot, but what do you mean by the angst part?
It feels like, especially when it comes to, actually, let me explain a little bit more, because I think that angst comes in like, there's so much like tension at times. It feels like there's, these expectations of like, this is going to be the next thing, or there's just a lot of clicks, frankly.
Okay.
Where you just have, and I feel like that the angst kind of bleeds into a little bit of that, but also just in general, I don't know, it's just a lot of, like, there's a lot of talented people that all don't necessarily like each other and get mad if, as you, the person who's covering everything, will cover one thing or cover another. So, yeah, does that kind of make more sense about it?
Yes. I don't feel like the angst is brought to me typically, but I definitely like hear about it. Like, I know that people have feelings about what should be covered and what shouldn't, or mostly what should, I guess. But, and like, I get emails, by the way, like weird emails from readers who are like I recently got a very long email from a reader who read my concert guide for the Oregonian, and I don't know if you know the band Little Feat.
No.
Neither did I, and this person was very upset about it. Okay, do you know Taj Mahal? Blues musician. Okay. So he came, the band is like from the same class of like classic rock, okay? Like they originated like back then. And this person was very upset that I didn't include them in the concert guide, and they wrote like a scribe about why I should know about them and all the artists they've worked with and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. They're like, I don't know if you can amend your article. I doubt it. But if you should put that. And they were like very upset that I didn't have the knowledge. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not from that generation. I'm sure my dad knew who they were or something, you know what I mean? Like, but like I asked Bryce and he was like, I don't know who they are. I was like, well, I'm supposed to, I guess, you know? So I do get a lot of angst, like emails like that of people being like, you didn't include this, or you were wrong about this, or this artist isn't this type. You know, I get people picking at, I'm not this type of artist. I'm actually this artist. You know, like I'm not this genre. I'm this genre. It's like, okay. This is, I don't know. It feels arbitrary to me to ask, I don't know. Anyway, I don't get a lot of it brought to me, but I do feel it. And, like, I do feel, like, the influence of people wanting me to focus more on other things. But, like, I cover what I cover because I cover it. You know what I mean? Like, It's my choice what I cover for the most part. And, like, I'm not going to go against my own instincts or knowledge. And a lot of times if I'm not covering something specifically and it feels like I should, there's probably a reason. You know what I mean? Like, it's probably because I know something about something, and you know what I mean? Like, it's not for no reason. Like, if someone's really talented and putting good work out and you think I'm not covering them enough, it's probably because I don't want to, because of a deeper meaning. So, I will say that.
I mean, that. So I wanted to kind of like transition to talk about just sort of the journey and specifically like going to U of O J school and what that did. But I think it's a great segue because, just when you actually get into it, you start realizing the things that, you didn't like really talk about or go into classes for, all these like nuances, these little, again, just certain like, especially like social pressures or factors, I guess, of this work. Like, you learn, how to do the journalistic interview, you learn how to do research, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But when you get in there and then you start really learning the politics of it all, it's a whole different thing. You're like, oh wow, I wish, I wish I had some engagement or heard something for that, even though in some of these cases you get confronted with things that you're like, there's nothing.
Right.
Like there's nothing was going to prepare me for this.
Blueprint for that one.
But yeah, so you went to U of O J school again. Go Ducks.
Go Ducks.
But yeah, when was this, and like what were can you just talk about that experience actually?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I graduated in 2010. My first 2 years of school, I really didn't know what my major was. I was still designated as like a business major, but I took like one business class and I was like, I could not stay awake. I could not keep my eyes open that entire week. I was like, clearly business school isn't for me. This is too boring. And so eventually I decided that journalism was like the perfect kind of vehicle to explore all my interests. And also because I'm into like photography and stuff too. So I was like, I could even, get into like multimedia journalism and like photography or something if I wanted to. So I went into that, and I also like really liked all my journalism classes. That was like probably the biggest reason, is like all the J school classes that I took were like my favorite that I had. So I was like, I'll just take more of those, and then I'll graduate with a journalism degree. And I did, but it was like really, really hard. At the U of O, it's not set up like this anymore, but when I went there, the like core journalism classes, there was like a core journalism classes, and then one of them was nicknamed Info Hell.
I was about to ask you about that when you said 2010. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
you're Info Hell generation
like,
too?
Yes.
So I did take it. I had to take it twice, but for those watching, like Info Hell, what is that? Could you explain what that class was?
Info Gathering is the actual name of the class, and you basically have to write like an 130 page research paper, but the bulk of it is source annotations. So you write you have to have a certain number of sources, and it's like a lot. It's a lot of sources that you have to have, and like the bulk of the whole paper is you like reviewing and like analyzing all the sources, and like, because they want you to like determine the credibility of each source. Like, is this source biased? Is this source funded by, a certain interest group? Or, so you have to really like get in there and be about your shit. And then you write like a 10 or a 15 page essay.
Like, 15 to 18.
20 pages or
something. Again, like a 150 page thing. Almost 90% of it is annotations.
Right. And I got a B on mine. And I took it in the summer, actually. Ooh. So instead of it being 10 weeks, it was 8 weeks. So it was like a little faster. But I also didn't have to take like a bunch of other classes at the same time. So that was my whole reason for doing it in the summer, because I was like, that sounds like a situation that I need to focus on. And it was rough. I remember the first few weeks being rough, and there were like people were dropping like flies, for sure. Yeah. So yeah, I took Info Gathering, one of the last, I think, generations to take it. I think the year after me they got rid of it or something.
No, because I have a friend who graduated the year after, because I graduated 2011.
Oh, okay.
A friend of mine graduated 2012, and they had the new, I forgot what it's called. It's like Pathways or some weird, like, maybe I'm just a weird person. And again, I had to take it twice. I also, second time I did it, it was in the summer because when I tried to do it,
With other
everything
classes.
else, it was just like, no, this
No.
isn't going to work. But I kind of liked it actually, just because,
Yeah.
and I understood the skill later, you know, because there's certain things you do. I had another, I think it was like magazine writing, where the teacher had this like automatic F policy. I'm like, anything, any mistake whatsoever, automatic F. That was a lot.
Good
you know,
God.
don't capitalize this one thing. Don't have one misspelling in a proper name. Automatic F.
Did you take grammar?
Like journalism grammar or
That class was the bane of my existence. I was more confused at the end of the class than I was at the beginning.
I might have taken. If I do though, I don't. It doesn't stick with me as much as the automatic F policy because
Right.
that was that. But with InfoHell, it was just like you said, like understanding sources. Because this is what I deal with in trying to teach classes now and realizing, or just being out in the world in general and seeing how people kind of engage with news media,
Yeah.
and people really don't understand the difference between one, they don't understand how to fact check,
Right.
or how to like
Why,
again,
why isn't that taught in high school?
right?
Which I guess it is, like, very briefly.
Yeah,
But,
Not-
like,
if at all.
If at yeah. Like, I'm sure I wrote a research paper in high school, but it was not we did not analyze our sources in this way.
Yeah, and it's like it's very
yeah.
important to understand. Again, like I said, who's funding this? What are their biases? Not so you can say, because I think a lot of people when they hear bias, they're like, bias bad. I can't. I can't. Fine, I won't pay attention to this. And it's like, no,
Right.
understand. Like there are some sources I genuinely recommend you don't, encourage or support.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But in the most part, it's like, okay, this is where their blind spots are. This is, this is who's paying for their advertising, so they're not going to talk about them, which means if that person does anything that's bad behavior, you shouldn't go to this site for that information. Just kind of like, just again, practical use of
Right.
it. And of course, again, they kind of like beat it into you through a 150-page research paper, but you kind of get it afterwards. But also, as two people who took it during the summer, I can understand why they decided, oh, maybe we shouldn't
Right.
make this
We're
mandatory.
like, we're failing quite a bit of students here. This doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Yeah, my roommate actually took it during the regular school year, and she had to drop it like late because it didn't work out. I don't think she ever retook it. So she was one of the many that probably fell through those cracks.
Yeah,
But,
it's tough.
yeah,
Did you
Jace-
write for the? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, J School. I also was on like Ethos, and like I was a designer. I think I thought that I was gonna design magazines. Like that was my like dream. I was like, I'm gonna be the designer. I'm gonna like put because I liked like layout and stuff. But then I did that for Ethos, and I was just like, this is so much. Like it was too hard. Like I had to have the editor help me so much. I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm not the most creative visually. Like I'm okay, but I feel like I can copy stuff. But like creating visual art is like hard. You have to like have it in here and then draw it. It's hard. So
Yeah.
then I was like, I guess I'm gonna be a writer. Oh, and I took a features writing class that was like the best thing ever. Did you take feature writing?
I think so.
Oh, that class was everything. I remember my professor being like, she was like, I want you all to be published. She's like, everything you write for this class, I want you guys to try to get it published somewhere. And I was like, that is so cool. Like, real world experience. And I did actually later have one of my stories get published, which was cool. But then I took feature editing, and I realized I'm not an editor. Like, I'm okay. But, like, long feature editing, no. Other people's writing, like, it's so hard. You have to, like, clean it up and, like, move stuff around to make it make sense, and it's just a mess. It's, like, the worst. Like, I'd much rather write than edit.
So I do a good amount of editing for work. So I kind of like working with other people's writing just because like it's not mine. I don't know.
Right.
Like it gives me some space just to like, I don't know, like I'm separated enough from it that I
Nice.
feel like I can, go in there and that that also kind of like depends on who you're working with. Some people are very open to edits. Some people
hate it.
Yeah. And
or they're like, they want to fight you on everything.
Yeah.
Every little thing, they're like, wait, no.
Yeah. So, figuring out the right chemistry and that collaborative process is definitely a real thing. But
see, I love edits. I'm like, edit.
Oh, wait, no. Go. I want you to talk about this more for the camera, please, because I deal with, again, a lot of students who are like, why do we need the edits? Why is this important?
We need the frickin' edits. I feel like another person can see it so much better than you because you've already like had it all like tied up in your head and like a knot, and then you get it on the page and it's like an editor is just like so necessary. I love an editor because by the time I hand it over, I'm like, get it away from me. I don't want to look at it anymore. I'm sick of it. It's not right. Make it right. I love an editor, and I'm usually pretty like, unless there's like, like a word choice that isn't right or something. I'm usually like, yeah, looks good. Like, you're the editor. You're the one. So yeah, I think editors are amazing. The best.
Kids, if you're watching, embrace the editing process.
Embrace it.
It's for you. It's a collaborative effort. Everyone just wants to put their best foot forward.
Right.
It's not a fight. I am not talking like I'm scarred by this at all. I'm really not.
I think sometimes it can feel like sometimes people put words in your mouth or something if you're editing and you like, change it a lot or like doesn't sound like you sometimes. But I feel like a good editor can still make it sound like you. Like sometimes some sentences are just like jumbled kind of, and they just have to kind of like rework it. But yeah, I have had that a couple times where an editor is kind of like, just rewritten a bunch, and I'm just like, but then at the end, I'm just like, whatever. It's like I said it. I basically said it. It's my name under the top, so I said it. I signed off on it. You signing off on it, it's like the same as you saying it. It's like when you sign a contract. I said all that.
Yeah, that's pretty true. I've had some moments where I've done readings of things I've published, and I'm like you, where I, once I turn it in, it's just like, it's gone. Let it have its life of its own.
Yeah.
It's 18. It's out of the house.
Right.
Good. But then you do the reading for it, so that's the first time you're seeing the published and other edit version. So, it'll just be reading through out loud to a group of people, and in real time I'm seeing, oh, they changed this.
Right.
And so I'm like, I hope people don't see my brain processing this right now. And sometimes I'll read it as they've changed it. Sometimes I definitely won't.
Right.
But it's an interesting experience. With talking about writing for Ethos, though, I think one of the things that I wrote for the Daily Emerald, and both U of O publications. So Ethos was the magazine, Daily Emerald was sort of like the newspaper. There was what was
the other magazine?
Yeah, there was like the satire.
Oh, was there?
Yeah, I forget.
Oh, I was
remember
thinking
what it
of
was called.
Flex. Flex, the magazine.
Yeah, Flux.
Flux, not Flex.
That's but there was also
Flux.
Some kind of like basically the UO version of the Onion. I feel like that's how I knew I was doing something, because it's a weird way to say it. Like you get stuff published, you're getting the comment section. Some people love it. I had to lucky enough to like have some people I'd be in like PE class be like, oh, I read you, and it's like, oh, that's nice. Also, you get a bunch of, again, Eugene's, the campus is not like the rest of the city.
Right.
So you get a lot of people commenting in who are very angry about, a black person expressing political thoughts.
Right, of course.
And then I think, again, if I remember what the satire piece, because I don't want to just drag them through this unnecessarily, because that's not what this was meant to be. But when they had a piece where they were just like cracking on me, is like, it wasn't a great joke, but it was kind of like, oh, he's the angry black guy talking about things, again, not a good joke, not a cool thing, but I was like, oh, but they see me and they kind of at least, you know, even if they don't like it, like it's doing enough to get people's attention, made it enough that someone felt the need to like write and take a shot at it.
Right.
So I was like, okay. And it's a weird metric to judge things on, but I feel like, you know, 12 years later, where again, hate is a very, you know, profitable metric in media, may have been onto something. So yeah, just like that feedback process, or I'm not sure if you had something similar where it's just like, you know, because it's still a student magazine, but like it's publishing, and like you're having a campus community kind of like engage with you. Like, I don't know, what did that do for you as a writer?
So I was actually only a designer at Ethos.
Okay.
I didn't get published until after graduation. I pitched my I wrote a feature story for my class about, it was a trend piece about how hula hooping was having a resurgence. Like it was becoming like kind of like a hippie like trend, and like a lot of girls in college were starting to take it up as like an exercise, like a fun thing. And it was like a trend going around. And so I wrote a thing on it and I pitched it to the Emerald, and they published my first ever published piece. And it was like right after I graduated too. So that was my first published piece, and I don't remember getting any feedback on it because it wasn't very hot takey, or like there weren't politics or social justice or anything involved. It was just like, cute girls like to hula hoop, not wearing a lot of clothes, you know, like it was very much, So that was my first published piece. And Ethos I just designed for. I think the first time I started getting like feedback from my stuff was definitely like with We Out Here in the Merc, and probably more the Merc. Although I did basically get like going with the Merc because of my We Out Here stuff.
Yeah, can you just talk a little bit about like how you got involved with We Out Here, and like what sparked you to you know, go that route? Because I think, you know, when people, especially like when I talk with a lot of people, everyone, you know, they know the Oregonian, maybe Willamette Week. So it always feels like an uphill battle when you're writing for like a community paper or like sort of like a grassroots organization. But also it can be, I feel like it can be very rewarding and can really like tap you into, again, just like street level coverage in a way that these other things can't.
Exactly, because like all of those publications were not covering local hip hop until I did. So after I moved back, I think I spent a few years really trying to like intern around town. Like I interviewed twice at Portland Monthly. I tried to intern at the Oregonian. I was pitching to all these freaking places, but no one would have me. And then I finally got an internship at Seattle Met, which is like the sister publication to Portland Monthly. So I moved to Seattle for like a year to do that, because I was like, I need this experience. Like I need to be like on staff and like working at a magazine so I can really learn. And like, because no one will hire you if you don't have like an internship or something, basically. So I did that. And then after that, I missed my friends and I came back to Portland, and I had all my new skills. And I was like, you know, in Seattle, I had been writing for their blog and publishing for their publications and stuff. So I had experience. And then when I got here, I was like, well, I wonder if there's like a Portland hip hop scene, or like what's going on in the Portland music scene, you know? So I think I just started digging like on Instagram, or I don't know. I don't even remember how I found the show, but I found like an Instagram post for, you know, that show We Take Holocene that Glenn Waco did?
Yeah.
So they put out like these promo videos for it with like Mikey Fontaine and Rashid Jamal and Mike Capes. Like, it was like they did like these black and white like promo videos of them like near Holocene. I was like, oh, this event looks kind of cool. You know, it looks like a legit event. I was like, oh, someone's actually putting effort into organizing this. It doesn't look like some just like open mic, which no shade to open mics. But you know what I mean? It doesn't look like some random show. Like it looks like these guys probably have talent or something. Like why would they put all this effort in? So I went to the show. Dame Lillard was there. I was like, Madison, that's Damian Lillard right there. And she was like, no, it isn't. He's too short. And I was like, I swear to God. And then we went over and I was like, that's definitely him. So he was at this random show. And I was like, so clearly something cool is happening, right? And then like they were all freaking awesome. And I was like, what's going on? I didn't know there was hip hop in Portland. You know what I mean? Like I grew up in Canby and would only come to Portland like on the weekends or like for, you know, to go out and stuff. So I wasn't like tapped in. And because I wasn't tapped in, I was just like, there isn't anything fun in Portland. You know, like I was talked major shit about Portland for years because I was like, it's just all white people. There's nothing fun to do if you're not white. You know, like I would say that type of stuff. Like, I don't like it here. I'm moving. I'm leaving. I'm going to Seattle. And then I came right back. And then.
funny how that happens.
Isn't that funny? I was like, they're not nice up here. I miss my friends. And then I came back and I found that show and I went to it. And basically, I think I met like some We Out Here people there. And my friend was like, hey, you should write for them. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to, I got that guy Mac's number. We connected. So we're going to like go out to coffee. And then me and Mac went to coffee like in a week or two. And then I was like, cool, I'm going to write for We Out Here now. And then I like kind of went crazy, just like taking photos everywhere and just trying to get, I don't even know what my end goal was. I was just like, I didn't want to stop the momentum, I guess, because I had been doing so much good work in Seattle that I didn't want to come back here and just kind of let it all like fall to the wayside. So I wanted to like just kind of keep digging and keep being involved. So I would just like go to show, you know, anything I could find that was going on, I would just go and take, if I didn't even want to write about it, I would just take pics just to like feel like I was involved or like I was doing something. I should do that again. Take a break from writing. I miss doing that. So I would just do that type of stuff. And then Kira, who was the music editor at the Mercury, she had been kind of following, I guess, you know, she paid attention to We Out Here. Who knew?
That's the other funny part about this thing. Like, you think, okay, the city doesn't know we exist or we feel like we're being ignored. But people I remember when I was at the Scanner, I knew writers at the Oregonian were like following what we were doing, or following me personally. I was like, oh, well, even if I don't feel like I'm respected enough on this larger level, and what does that even mean? Honestly, like these people see me. And that's something.
Exactly. I was like shocked. She like hit me up. She was like, hey, I really enjoy what you've been doing for We Out Here. I was wondering if you'd want to like freelance for us too. And then we like went to coffee and I just started writing like their, you know, kind of their usual freelancer, just blurbs for their guides and stuff. And then I wrote like a Beyonce album review of Lemonade that went kind of crazy on like the stats it did was crazy. And then they like offered me a column. And then shortly after that, Copy Chief opened up and they asked me to apply, and then I got it. And then I was like, oh my God, I've made it. I've made it. You know, like I've never told anyone this, but I was literally on the toilet when I heard the voicemail of him offering me the job. And I was like, I'm literally on the toilet being offered a job right now. Like, what? I like had my phone in like the next room. It was like on speaker and I just played it and I was like, are you kidding me? I got the job. I didn't think I was ever going to get hired like full time, you know. I thought I would be freelancer forever. But so yeah, that was awesome. And I guess that's kind of how I got going with We Out Here, and that led right into my journalism career, which was really cool. Yeah. Because I didn't think anyone was reading it, honestly. Like I knew the local rappers and stuff were reading it, but like I was like, I didn't think anyone else was, which is why it probably was so easy to do. I was just like, yeah, it's just like a blog, whatever.
Oh, I was saying it was easy. it's hard work, but also,
I mean, at the time, it wasn't like, if you guys go on We Out Here and you see my stuff, it's not going to be the same standard of work. Like, there's going to be typos. There's going to be copy edit issues.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't really have an editor on there. Like, Mac will read it, but like, I'm the edit. I self-edit it. It doesn't go through a process.
It's part of the journey. It's the you were blogging,
right? It's live blogging. It's all in the moment.
So, you kind of talked about going from We Out Here to now Portland Mercury column. Being, you also part of what kind of like put this interview together was me reaching out on another story for the thesis, which you've also been involved in, one of the co-founders of.
I'm not a co-founder.
Okay, yeah. Let's clarify. Again, fact checking, journalistic integrity.
I was not technically a co-founder, but I came on to help out very early on. I think they had done maybe like 2 or 3 shows before I came on. And I think Janessa was kind of doing the guest list and like hosting type stuff, but then she left probably to focus on one of her other awesome projects. And Mac just asked me to help with the guest list. So I would put that together every week or every month. And then I stopped doing that when COVID happened, obviously. And then Kelly's just kind of has been handling it. Also, I get to write about it more if I'm not involved in it.
Also that.
Otherwise, I have to be like, which full disclosure I help out with. Like, I have to put that in there every single time. Full disclosure.
When I was a writer, kind of like covering it from the outside, like, what do you think of just like how it's evolved over the years?
I think it's like the best freaking monthly show in town, honestly. It's so fun. I feel like it's so consistent too. Like, I always have a fun time when I go, and I feel like it's really grown into like a bigger thing now. Like now they have like all these like big things, like they have like a photo booth and freaking like live coverage.
Did
when
they
they're
just
there
bring in like the
sometimes.
360 camera?
Yeah, the 360 camera, like it's really growing, and it's actually surprising to me it's still at Kelly's because of how big it's kind of gotten. But I kind of want it to stay at Kelly's. Like, can Kelly's just make the room bigger? Like,
Kelly's, if you're watching,
just make the room bigger. 'Cause yeah, it is a small room, which is kind of adorable. But it's also challenging sometimes. Just getting in and out of there can be chaotic, and then like people congregating by both ends of the door, and then like if there's anything chaotic that happens, it can be kind of weird. But yeah, I think it's the best show in town, honestly. And I want to go next month. I've been missing so many of it because my daughter, because I'm a mommy now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I've said that on another panel before, but since we're here.
That's true. So yeah, the thesis is great. I love how many people are involved with it now as well. Like I feel like they're always getting like new like photographers that want to come out and document it, and like I feel like it's cool how it's kind of like I don't even know. It's like I feel like it feeds the scene in a way. Like anyone who wants to kind of get involved with it, I feel like if you just come to the thesis, you'll like meet people and like, I don't know, you can play a part in it, you know? Like you can either take pics or video, or like you can try, you know, if you want to perform, you can meet someone there if you want to perform. If you want to be a dancer or like a backup singer or an instrument, you know, if you want to play an instrument for somebody. I feel like it's just like a good networking, you know, like a networking event too. Like every month it's like there. And not all, I feel like there's been so many like series that have kind of come and go, or they've kind of like fizzled out, or they're kind of unpredictable now, or you don't know when the next one is. But this one has been like first Thursday every month for what, 5 years, 6 years?
So, something like that.
Yeah. And like it really only stopped with COVID. And so I'm really glad it's back. I hope it never ends.
This is a great segue because I think a lot of times when people are asking for, at least when I've watched people talk about advice, specifically when it comes to like music coverage, a lot of times writers will say, go to the shows, like go, like you said, like these are networking opportunities. These are opportunities just to, again, get a feel for who's out there, what, what's connecting. But to that end, like what advice would you offer to aspiring music writers, whether it be, like it could be hip hop specific, but just also in general?
I mean, definitely go to the shows. I feel like that's like where I get inspired and where I like find new stuff a lot of the time, because it's like you might not be the person who wants to listen to some artist you've never heard of music, but if you are regularly going to shows and catching the opening acts, like you're going to be inspired by that, because those artists are literally curated for you to also like. So I feel like that's one way to always like kind of find new artists. Like I've found countless others. I'll be like, you opened for Kehlani that one year, whatever. It's like, I remember really liking that. Or like, yeah, I feel like just stuff like that. Or like even like the music they play before a show. Sometimes you hear news. Like I was at the SZA show. I felt so elderly. I went alone, and the whole time, all the songs they were playing were like very new, fun, like rap songs, often like female rappers. And some of those songs, I was like everyone was chanting the lyrics in unison, screaming them, and I was like, I have not heard this song, and I felt so old. But then afterwards, I like Googled the song, and I was like, oh, okay, I like this. Because I remembered like the lyrics they were shouting. I was like, okay, I need to Google this, because I obviously am not young and hip anymore.
I had a moment like that a few years ago going to a show. No name any names.
I also am not naming any names because I'm too embarrassed. But
I do think, obviously you're much more plugged in than I am, but I just think recommendations are, it can be it's important. Like, I give my producer Ado credit. He was having some conversation after a recording session, and shout out to Alex, who's also here. Shout out to, now I'm forgetting names, so I'm so sorry. Rashad, shout out to Rashad. And, y'all just putting me on to, like, I had seen JPEG Mafia do interviews, right? I'd never listened to the music. It's just like, oh, there's interesting interviews, and he wears the Cloudy October gloves. Interesting. And then, the Ado and them were just putting me on to that new album with Danny Brown. And I was like, oh, wow, on one level, I do feel really old right now, but I love this. Like, let's just give me more of this,
Right.
But to that end, though, we started this talking about how, just using your columns for 106 in quarantine. And so I figured we should end with a recommendation. And I'm just curious, as far as like any artists who've emerged locally in the last like couple years, if there's anyone you would say, Bruce, you need to listen to this person, because I guarantee you I'm not. So any name you throw out there.
Couple of years. Oh my God.
Dramatic pause.
Emerged like in Portland or like at all?
Portland, Oregon, sort of the Northwest, I would say.
Like they're a new artist.
Yeah.
Oh God. New. I mean, what comes to mind, I don't know when she started, but I know she just moved to Portland within the last couple years. Her name is Zaya Bell. Do you know who she is?
Yeah, I know of her.
She's awesome. I think I didn't discover her, but I personally discovered her when she played The Thesis. She's like an R&B singer. She's awesome. She has like the coolest visuals too. Like her aesthetic is really developing. I'm just really obsessed with her sound and like her whole aesthetic and her vibe. So she's one that's at the forefront of my mind. But she's not super new. She's just new to the area. Another one. Who is it? Skip. Have you heard of Skip?
I haven't heard of Skip.
Skip, also not sure when this person came out, but they're like a producer, musician person, and they do like instrumentals. I think they played a beat happening recently, but they recently put out a new album, and it's spelled like SQU. No, it's spelled with a Q. Skip, like squip. SQIP?
Yeah, I mean,
I did mention, I talked about their album in a recent column as well. But yeah, their name is Skip. They're really cool. Very into this person. Did you find him?
possibly. Let's see. Skip, musical artists. We got an SQ, if this will load up. SQIP.
Yeah, Skip.
Yep, Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
Yep, on the Bandcamp now. So I'm going to check that out later.
Yeah, check Skip out. He's cool.
For sure.
My editor put me on to him. She's like, I don't know if you know who Skip is. I was like, I don't. But I listened to it. I was like, this is tight. I really like this. I'm an instrumentals person. We're like chill hop all day at our house. Lo-fi vibes.
Duly noted.
Because you can nap to that.
So, sounds reasonable for a parent.
It is.
Seems necessary. Well, yeah, Jenni, thank you so much again for taking the time today to, talk about your journey, talk about, I think, again, just some of these little nuances that go into the writing process, and also to do a great PSA for editing. Editing.
Yay.
It's wonderful.
We love our editors.
It really makes this go around. Please don't fight it. Please. Anyways, thank you again.
Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.